These reporters stood zero chance.
Who do you work for?
Notice.
Who?
Notice.
I don't even know what the hell that is.
From President Trump reframing Kristen Walker's loaded question to Marco Rubio calling out the mainstream media for their biased coverage.
You guys make it sound like ICE agents kicked down the door and grabbed the 2-year-old and threw him on an airplane. That's misleading. Yeah. That's just not true.
That's why today's video is not to be missed, so buckle up because you are in for a treat.
Andy Harris said that you didn't adequately convince enough people to vote for the bill, the House Freedom Caucus.
You mean after this speech?
After this speech, that's what
Oh,
you
yeah, I
said.
think so. Well, what do we see at the voters? I think it was a great talk. It wasn't a speech. We talked about things. Who do you work for?
Notice.
Who?
Notice.
I don't even know what the hell that is. You gotta get yourself a real job. Let me tell you.
Now, this happened during the president's visit to the Capitol as he was rallying Republicans in Congress behind the big, beautiful bill. Now, the funny thing is, no one would know what notice is without looking at it. To keep it short, the name stands for News of the United States, which is very original, I know, but according to their website, they are nonprofit, nonpartisan, and focused on the bigger question, why? Why is Washington the way it is, and what drives the people to make it so? But scroll down a little further and you'll see who's funding all of this unbiased curiosity: Google, Goldman Sachs, and Velocity. So much for nonpartisan. Next, we have Trump using Kristen Walker's tactics against her, and the way she lost, it was hilarious.
Some people on Wall Street have expressed concerns that the possibility of a recession is increasing. And I want to know what you think about that. Are you comfortable with the country potentially dipping into a recession for a period of time if you are able to achieve your long-term goals?
Well, you say some people on Wall Street say, well, I can tell you something else. Some people on Wall Street say that we're going to have the greatest economy in history. Why don't you talk about them? Because some people on Wall Street say this is
well, that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at, though. It's the same question.
Yeah, there are many people on Wall Street say this is going to be the greatest windfall ever happened.
No, it's not the same question. It's you cherry-picking the statements that have fit your narrative and are the most negative towards Trump's actions. But here's one thing the MSM isn't reporting. Inflation is slowed down for the third month in a row, but I guess since some people from Wall Street aren't saying that, it doesn't count as fact, right? Even Marco Rubio had to endure Kristen's loaded questions in another interview, and the way he handled it was perfect.
About some new reporting that came in overnight. I want to just go through it for you and for our audience. 3 U.S. citizen children have been deported with their mothers. Now, this is according to the Washington Post, and it's raising concerns about the issue of due process, that it's being violated. So let me ask you, is everyone on U.S. soil, citizens and non-citizens, entitled to due process?
On the headline, that's a misleading headline. Okay, 3 U.S. citizens, ages 4, 7, and 2, were not deported. Their mothers, who are legally in this country, were deported. The children went with their mothers. If those children are U.S. citizens, they can come back into the United States if there's their father or someone here who wants to assume them. But ultimately, who was deported was their mothers who were here illegally. The children just went with their mothers. But it wasn't like you guys make it sound like ICE agents kicked down the door and grabbed the 2-year-old and threw him on an airplane. That's misleading.
Exactly. Let's start with the basics. Deportation means removing someone who is not a citizen of the country. So when the media runs with the emotional narrative that the U.S. citizens were deported, it's either an outright lie or a clear misunderstanding of what the word even means. But of course, when it comes to the MSM facts, take a backseat to the storyline they want to push. By the way, I've noticed you haven't liked the video or subscribed to the channel yet, so what are you waiting for? Now, obviously, Kristen didn't like Marco's answer and repeated the same question word for word, hoping for a different one.
Is it the U.S. policy to deport children, even U.S. citizens, with their families, and I hear what you're saying, without due process? Just to be very clear there.
Well, no. Again, if someone's in this country unlawfully, illegally, that person gets deported. If that person is with a 2-year-old child or has a 2-year-old child and says, I want to take my child with me, well, then you have 2 choices. You can say, yes, of course you can take your child, whether they're a citizen or not, because it's your child. Or you can say, yes, you can go, but your child must stay behind. And then your headlines would read, U.S. holding hostage 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 7-year-old while mother deported. So the parents make that choice. I imagine those 3 U.S. citizen children have fathers here in the United States. Yeah. They can stay with their father. That's up to their family to decide where the children go.
Marco is absolutely right. There's no escaping the media attack simply because they don't agree with the deportations that are going on. Where was this energy when not so long ago thousands were pouring across the border every day? Back then, the same outlets were silent or busy justifying the chaos. Now, with an administration finally enforcing the law, they finally switched to full meltdown. they conveniently forgot they were making sure the laws applied equally for individuals in the country and people who aren't here lawfully aren't being shipped away. Next, we have Chris Cuomo citing experts in a gotcha question only to be shut down by JD Vance.
You have to qualify the understanding based on what we just saw with those 20-plus Nobel-winning economists who said, if you do tariffs the wrong way, you wind up spiking prices here that get passed on to the consumer. Yeah. And that was also additive to inflation. And they criticize the Trump administration and its future plan for being at risk of doing exactly that.
Sure. So I know that's a criticism that's been out there. Here's why I don't buy it. So first of all, these are the same experts that said shipping our entire manufacturing industry to China, to East Asia, to Mexico would lead to greater American prosperity. They were wrong. It was a mistake to do that. We followed their advice, and now, frankly, a lot of Americans can't afford a good life, can't earn a middle-class wage because we listened to some of those very same people. Look, you don't have to agree with everything I say or everything that Donald Trump says, but when you actually look at the policy accomplishments, we had low inflation and rising take-home pay, and I think tariffs were a big part of that.
I actually have a working theory on why these Nobel Prize-winning economists didn't get it right. As much as they might be brilliant in their fields, most of their ideas live on paper in academic journals, not the real-world economy where things actually need to function. Trump, on the other hand, comes from a business background. He's had enough tough decisions with real money on the line, not just simulating them in a classroom. That kind of experience gives you an edge that you can't get from theory alone. And to wrap things up, we have Stephen Miller giving a quick civics lesson to the MSM in a way only he could.
We're hearing this ironic narrative from the president's critics and the left-wing media that Elon Musk is an unelected bureaucrat and he's doing all this terrible stuff. Isn't one of Doge's objectives to get rid of the federal bureaucracy, the deep state?
Many people in this room who have used this talking point that Elon is not elected fail to understand how government works. So I'm glad for the opportunity for a brief civics lesson. A president is elected by the whole American people. He's the only official in the entire government that is elected by the entire nation, right? Judges are appointed, members of Congress are elected at the district or state level, just one man. And the Constitution, Article 2, has a clause known as the vesting clause, and it says the executive power shall be vested in a president, singular. The whole will of democracy is imbued into the elected president. That president then appoints staff to then impose that democratic will onto the government. The threat to democracy, indeed the existential threat to democracy, is the unelected bureaucracy of lifetime tenured civil servants who believe they answer to no one, who believe they can do whatever they want without consequence, who believe they can set their own agenda no matter what Americans vote for.
I have to say, the way Stephen delivers his responses is to be studied. His delivery is sharp, confident, and backed by actual legal knowledge, unlike the MSM, which often relies on emotional outburst or baseless claim. But I'd love to know your thoughts here, so let's get the conversation rolling in the comments down below. If you want your friends to see these amazing takedowns, please share the video with them. It means the world. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.